Hey, good morning. Thursday, June 11th. It's a beautiful morning. More and more, I'm waking up to beautiful days. I was up a little bit late last night, and I think it's because I was really living in the moment. I had a wonderful day. I really enjoyed it, and I had a busy day and a challenging day. And at the end of the night, I was doing things a little bit differently than my normal. It's my normal time to kind of go unconscious. And I still totally watched a little TV, relaxed a little bit, ate pizza with my kids, which I try not to do on weekdays, but I was just really in the moment. And, then I didn't just stay on the food wagon train. I kind of pulled back and did some different things. I'm experimenting with sharing my videos on YouTube, and that just happened organically, and that was way more fun than the fact that it's been on my to-do list for a million years. So I'm trying to find ways to live my life authentically and joyfully and do the creative things when I feel inspired and creative and in the moment. And then I've been noticing that when we have conflict in our house, it's usually because somebody needs attention. And so I give a lot of my attention to others all day, especially now as we are opening back up. And I'm seeing a lot coming out of the transition, the quiet, the pause, and coming into now. So I'm going to put a pin in that. I want to say something about that. But I know that it was wonderful and lovely for me to stay up a little bit later, even if that meant me playing a card game pretty late with my daughter, and then still needing some quiet time to journal and read. And I was like a kid in a candy store. I couldn't go to bed until I finished my book, The Untethered Soul, which means I was up till after midnight. And I usually don't do that, but also what a nice treat to stay up late in such a lovely way and in such a soothing way, connecting with my daughter over a new game. And then in fact, I ordered one more because we're going camping, and I just know how awesome that's going to be. And yet I resist it sometimes because in my downtime, I don't want to focus on anything. And yet, what a simple way and what a better way than just watching TV or having us all be on our screens. So, I'm an old dog. It is hard to teach me new tricks, and yet I live my life in favor of learning new tricks. And it was lovely. And I finished my book, and I love it so much. And I just feel like it's been the right book at the right time. And I'm moving into a Glennon Doyle book, Untamed. And if I understand that content, that's just going to follow in a really lovely way, because it's also about living your joy and learning how to live for your fullest expression of yourself, not the boxes and frameworks that the world or maybe the constructs you've made for yourself make you live in. And then I'm, of course, hopefully we never forget that we're all living in this new context, right? I mean, again, I feel like I need such a state of reverence, and I don't want to make a mistake, but in honor of George Floyd, just acknowledging how his death has been a catalyst for the movement for deep societal change. And the people I talk to and talk with and spend time with hope that it's the beginning of deep and meaningful change. And so I see and I think and I feel everyone sort of being awkward and wondering how to be now because we don't want to be disrespectful. We don't want to be part of the problem. And but I'm sort of measuring some of what I do, and conversation helped me, and that's the pin I want to come back to. I'm so grateful that things are opening up. I was grateful for the time. I was grateful for the reflection. I respect people who want to be very, very careful, but I realize how much I get from my interactions with people, and I realize they are like a sociological tool for me, and I realize how much I am constantly learning from others. And maybe sometimes that's been more of like a desperate way, more of a way to be okay. But now it's like, I mean, it is kind of a way to be okay as a human in this time, but I'm just really authentically caring about where everybody's at. And I really love and respect where everyone's at, as long as they're not condemning people of color. And that's not what's happening in the people that I'm gathering information from. And yet I'm gathering a range of information. And I'm so grateful for my social group, or yeah, it's a social group, but it's my seniors that I help and look out for and have connected. And it's an interesting subsect because it's maybe the group I don't always relate the best to, and yet I'm learning just how much I do relate to them because they live in this community, and they're primarily over 70. And you know, it's special people that live in this community and who have lived their lives in this community, and learning from them. And I had a 8-member call yesterday, and out of them only one was a person of color, and it was almost a 50-50 men and women, but a little more women, and mostly over 70, and mostly urban people. And so while we talked about the mundane, we also talked about the important, and I was so touched and moved. One was Jewish, a Jewish photographer, and he shared a story of going to the site and the memorial, and it was when clergy people came through and they needed, I believe it's a quorum, and I do not remember the name of the Jewish prayer, but they needed a certain number of people so that they could say the Jewish prayer. And he's usually on the outside photographing, but he was brought into the inside. And he shared that very moving story. And then our female Black member shared a lot. And, you know, and it was wonderful. And at the end, and no one, this was organic, you know, no one was making or pushing her to share. As you know, I'm very aware not to go to your one, it's not one in my life, but your one person of color for the relief of your white guilt. But she was just sharing and sharing and sharing. And at the end, and I was so grateful, I was so moved, she just let us know. She's like, hey guys, you know, I'm Black and my skin is really thick, and if you have any questions, just ask. And we talked about things that have been in the media. We talked about Minnesota Nice and the conversations and the willingness to be uncomfortable. And I'm just really moved by just 2 stories she shared, and they weren't the most extreme stories, but they were so meaningful. It was, you know, requesting her father to change his language. It was experiencing racism as a stewardess in one of the most profane and disgusting ways, and yet it was just so simple and small. And then I spoke with clients throughout the day, and I've been doing this for a couple of weeks, and I'm in touch with people who live much closer than I, and I'm like a half mile from the 2 epicenters, and they lived right next to and in the most, I think, violent epicenter. And everyone is living in a sort of a state of shock. Everyone experienced a trauma. And obviously this is about the traumas that people have been forced to endure over time, and it's time for that to be over. But still, we're all of us living in some kind of a trauma and touched by this. And so I am grateful for the people in my life and the learning and the sharing and the growing and the evolving together. And so I am not the most overt change agent out there. It just isn't my way. And so as this is happening, it pushed me more towards center, more towards this, which can seem frivolous, but it's just me regrounding, because I know that I'm not great when I'm way out there. And also I've had a lot of trauma and crisis in my life, and I do become a little bit frozen in crisis and very, very like practical. You know, I'm not, although I was very emotional during this, I'm not always immediately very emotional. So at any rate, I think my purpose of this is sharing that I offer compassion for however we all are through this. And I 100% stand with the voices for deep and meaningful and lasting change. Good morning, Gary. I love you. And maybe I'm trying to assuage some of my guilt too, because I'm living my life much like I lived my life a month ago. But I also feel that my connection and caring and love has always been for inclusion. It's just that my fight and my challenges have faced different types of inclusion, but I've always wanted it to be inclusion for all. And so I'm continuing to learn, and that's my commitment. And I may just look like a silly girl posting and doing silly things, but I'm grateful for my community, and I'm grateful for my lessons, and I am going to continue to learn. And meditation practice has been one of my greatest teachers. You know, I thought it was yoga, and I thought it was how you treat the body and the mind in action and with food and with choices and experience. And gradually it's pushed me even more towards breath and meditation. Maybe that's just for now. Maybe that's also some deep and lasting change. But I will find out day by day. I'm never quite sure what's going to come through, and that's something that I also like about this. So again, for fear of rambling too much, let's settle into meditation now. So I'm sitting in a seat with my knees below my waist, elevating my spine, creating some space here, finding a place to rest my hands, and taking a couple of breaths to just get in connection. Go a little more inward, moving a little away from the construct of Tammy into a space of no place and no time, no person, and just connecting deep within. Just noticing and observing, and just pulling back when things tug and pull. Softening. Alexa, shut down. Hi. Okay. Well, that was unexpected. And maybe it shouldn't be. Foggy glasses. So I talked a bit more and went on a different tangent than I expected to. And I am really, I feel like, newly practicing trying to not control things. Being a little bit more of a noticer and a passenger through my life experience. And so I got a little weepy. And that seems appropriate. There's a lot to be weepy about. There's just feeling. And I also feel like I'm coming from a really joyful place right now. And as I was finishing the book that I'm reading last night, and it is really talking about who we are underneath skin and gender, what we are beyond this plane, and how you can get in touch with that in order to really feel and experience love. And one of the ways I was talking about that was through the reflection of death. And I'm kind of a weirdo, and I've experienced a lot of trauma, and I've also experienced a fair amount of close and near and not at the right times kind of death. And, you know, I was kind of a melancholy, like I might have been described as melancholy or depressed or moody or overly sensitive or dramatic as a young person. So I've had my dance, I've done my tango with death, and I do think it helps. I think you live as a certain kind of a person until death touches you, and then you are forever changed. And you know, what this book would argue is that's not really a bad thing. It's a very useful tool. If we can be more aware that literally none of us knows when our last breath is, and ask ourselves if our affairs are in order. Are we living our life the way we want, knowing it could all change at any moment? So I think I can actually say that that's a check-in I've given myself many times, because I'm kind of a weirdo and I've kind of been steeped and surrounded in death for most of my life. And it is a helpful tool, but yet I can ask it again. Are my affairs in order? What was my last exchange with my children like, with my husband, with the people in my life? Am I living my life? You know, I would wish I could have cleaned out my house more and left everything in a little more of a tidy package. The things that I would want to pass on to the people that I love, my thoughts, my writings. But other than that, I'm not saying I don't want to grow. I'm not saying I'm not, you know, I'm completely a mess any given day. I promise you that. But it's like Maria Bamford says, a comedian, I don't know what I'm doing more than half of the time. But I am striving to be in my center, to learn what that really is and what that really means, and to lead from that place in my connection and communication with others, and to try to not leave little emotional spills all over the place. So it's a worthy reflection if you could actually chit chat with death and know this is it. And then you say, but I need more time. And the point of this exercise is that we have time every day. And what are we doing with it? You know, the world is crying right now, saying, what have we been doing with our time? We're not fixing it fast enough. You know, how can we fix it? How can we fix it now? How do we live right now? And you don't have to be on vacation. And you don't have to, I mean, maybe you do need to change your life in a big way. You know, if something's sucking you dry and you have nothing left to give, then you need to look at that. Whether that's relationship, habits, job, something that's imprisoning you that you can change. But other than that, it doesn't matter your job. It doesn't matter your relationship. It doesn't matter the weather. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. You can live the way you are meant to live right now. And that's a bold statement. And I'm not saying I am always living the way that I am meant to live. But if I'm not, hopefully I can wake up to it more and more and more frequently. And that's what it is. It's just remembering. Is this what I want out of this moment? Is this what I want out of this exchange? Am I carving the time for my most important work? Am I freeing myself from the unnecessary burdens so that I can do the important work? And am I looking with the lens of beauty and light and love rather than the lens of judgment and fear and anxiety? And we may disagree, but I connect with all of the texts that teach me that God in any form is a loving entity. Whatever form that is. Interesting enough, the book I read, I thought it was a female voice the whole time. So maybe that was just me reflecting what I wanted to hear. It was a male voice. And for whatever reason, I don't mind calling God a he, but I think that's just my Lutheran, Minnesotan background. Whatever entity spirit takes for you. He doesn't want me to be miserable and trapped in judgment and fear, and he doesn't want you to be that way either. So when we can shine beauty and light on everything we see in every person, and in particular ourselves, because the fight that I am fighting is if we cannot hold ourselves in a space of beauty and love and light, we cannot hold others in beauty and love and light. And that is where fear takes hold. At least it's one place. And fear turns into judgment and trying to control things and trying to control others and being afraid we can't all have what we need. And then we treat people terribly. So that's the space I come from. There's a lot of spaces out there, a lot of ways to learn, same room, many doors. But I know my work has a lot to do with this space right here. I just know it does. So for whatever it's worth, messy middle, take what you like, leave the rest. Kernels for your day. I just think this goes for everybody. Look at your circle of control. Are you spending your energy where you can actually affect it? Or are you spending it just getting worked up about what you can't affect? And make no mistake, we can all affect something. You affect yourself, you affect the person in front of you. You know, so focus on your circle of control. If you're really burdened right now, find something to let go of. If you're really worked up, find someplace good to put it. And shed some light and love and space. Space. We all need space and room to breathe. And share that with somebody today. Okay? I will be here tomorrow. Namaste.